Hello and welcome to this special presentation titled Making Money with Marijuana Magic. My name is Steve Chappell, the Director of Trading Systems Development here at VectorVest, and I'm delighted to be your host for this presentation. You know, if you're like us, you're just getting inundated with all kinds of hyped up newsletters or emails pushing a certain marijuana stock for one reason or another. And, you know, at VectorVest, we just stick to the facts because the facts don't lie. So let's jump into VectorVest and let me show you exactly how we go about picking the very best marijuana stocks. So here we are at the homepage for VectorVest 7, and the best place to begin our journey today is right within our VectorVest newsletter called the VectorVest Views. So I'll go right up to the top, click on the Views tab, and in here I'm going to take a little bit of a journey back to August of 2018. In fact, we started talking about marijuana stocks in our newsletter as early as 2014. But I'm really going to center the presentation today around the August 24th edition of 2018. So let's go back there and click on the 24th. Perfect. And we'll scroll down to the essay portion. So again, this is the essay portion where our founder, Dr. Bart DeLito, can share with us his wisdom, and in this case it was titled Marijuana Magic. And so it's a wonderful essay. If you haven't read through it, I strongly encourage you to do so. I'm going to skip though right to the second paragraph, as everything we're going to do is going to center around what you find here. And it says, yes, marijuana stocks can deliver stunning gains, but you must have powerful tools to get them on a consistent basis. So here's what I said. If you want to experience the thrill of trading marijuana stocks for fun and profit, we can help you with that too. There are no gimmicks. We simply would buy the safest marijuana stocks with the best price performance. In other words, we would favor the top stocks in the healthcare marijuana industry group, sorted by a couple of our proprietary indicators, RS and CI. So RS times CI is the magic in marijuana magic. And let me go ahead and show you exactly what I mean. So to get to the next stop, we're going to go to Unisearch. All right, so here in Unisearch, what we'll do is we'll come over to the left, and we've got this vast search directory of all different kinds of opportunities in terms of stock selection strategies. What we're going to do is we'll just alphabetize the list and scroll down, and you guessed it, find Marijuana Magic. So here we are. And I'll click right on the very first one on our list. And it's a very simple search because all it does is focus right on the industry group, healthcare marijuana, and then it applies our sort that enables us to find the stocks with good financial performance, consistent and predictable earnings, along with price growth persistence or nicely upward trending stocks. At least the best of both worlds as it pertains to the emerging market of the healthcare marijuana industry. And so, in a nutshell, the companies that do the best, they may not be the best in the stock market, mind you, but the best in this particular space at growing their earnings quarter after quarter after quarter, year after year, and also price growth as a result of that will naturally show up right across the top of our list here when I click on Run Search. And so here we have the current list. And you can see we've got CV Sciences, Innovative Industries, boy, a beautiful chart on that one, Kronos Group, Organogram, Canopy Growth. And so there's some names here that you might be familiar with, and there'll be others that you may not have ever heard of before. And that's the strength right away of our analysis, is that we eliminate all the noise and the clutter, all of the speculation that resides out there, and we cut right to the facts. Because one thing that you're going to find common among all the stocks at the top of this list is with our relative safety, which is on a 0 to 2 scale, it's going to give you some of the strongest scores available right at the top of the list here. So in terms of financial performance, these are the cream of the crop. Now, you could see none of them have a favorable rating, which would be above 1, but they're the closest to those favorable ratings. You'll also see with CI, that they do in fact have persistent price chart patterns. So in other words, they tend to move from the lower left of a graph all the way towards the upper right. And we know that as a result of this indicator level being well above 1. The higher, the stronger the pattern, or the stronger the price growth persistence. So when coupling these two indicators together, you get the best of both worlds of strong or strongest available financial performance along with smoothest upward chart pattern. And so, boy, that's kind of a mouthful, but it gives you full detail on exactly what we're trying to accomplish for each and every one of you. And so when we pop open a chart, let's just say IIPR as an example. You could really look through the top dozen here or so, but one of the better ones indeed would be this Innovative Industries. And I've popped open a chart. On the top here we have, of course, price expressed as candlesticks, and we can see, generally speaking, it's got some pullback, certainly, of decent magnitude from time to time, but when it rallies strongly. And you've got a nice series of higher lows here ever since the market bottomed in December of last year. You'll also see on the bottom I've plotted VectorVest's earnings per share, which again is different than what you would see quoted on, say, Yahoo or some financial newspaper. This is looking at a forward 1-year calendar lead of future earnings per share. And what we see, it's based on some history and also, analyst expectations going forward. But we then extrapolate all that into a 1-year lead indication. And you can see they've had tremendous growth here as of late. And things have leveled off, but have leveled off for an awful lot of companies out there in the stock market these days. So what you have is one of the best of breed in terms of growing their earnings and resulting upward price pattern. Guys, there's no stronger correlation in the stock market than earnings growth to price growth. Earnings is sort of the engine that drives the bus. As long as we keep moving higher there with earnings, you're in good water in terms of likely going to see some nice rise in the underlying equity. But one thing to point out here, and it's something that troubles many investors, is a lot of times we catch these stocks right before they turn around and head down a pretty good bit before they get going again. And so how do I deal with that as an investor or a trader alike? And so we're going to get to that here in a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and close us out of this and move us to another search, kind of the evolution of the marijuana magic search into a final search here that eliminates a lot of the clutter. So this search here, when we look at the criteria, there's a little bit more to it. And what it does is eliminate a lot of the pink sheets and things of that nature that can cause some consternation in terms of, kind of still a mom and pop kind of organization, more so than an emerging, very strong corporate environment. And so these settings here go a long way towards giving us exactly what we want. And so what I'm going to do is run this search. You'll notice if you scan down through the results while you're at home, it's going to be a much shorter list. And these are the best of the best. And so they're still sorted by, you guessed it, RS times CI. So we still get the strongest at the very top of the list. So strongest being right at the top, all the way down to the weakest of the bunch towards the bottom. Now, it doesn't mean it's necessarily weak. These, again, are, but the higher up on the list, the stronger by way of financial performance and price growth persistence. Okay, so here is our IIPR right at the top of the list. So, we've already featured the chart, and certainly in this space, it has one of the most persistent chart patterns, and also, very strong earnings to back that up in terms of all the stocks that are, again, in the healthcare marijuana space. So from here, what we do is we know that we've got a good playing field, or we've got some good players to work with here to put on our team. In other words, these are the kinds of stocks that we want to be favoring in terms of the healthcare marijuana stocks. So we will be building a systematic way to trade them, and I'm going to take us to that part of the presentation now. So we're going to go to another tool called Backtester. And so here in Backtester, we began our inspection of designing a trading system around the marijuana stocks using Marijuana Magic DR, and also then really trying to get a situation where we grow that capital, our capital, month after month after month, if at all possible. And so what we are going to see here is that's going to require a timing list in order to help get us all the way there. And what I mean by that is we're only going to be buying the marijuana stocks when the stock market is healthy and on the rise. And so as soon as we get an up signal by this timing list, we will buy a basket of 10 marijuana stocks. Then we will hold them and manage them until we get to a down. And on a red triangle, we'll be switching over. And on any marijuana stock that we sell on the 10% trail that we'll get to, we'll start getting in a hedge and hopefully for profit position on contra ETFs. For each and every marijuana stock that we sell, we pick up a replacement by way of a contra ETF. And so inevitably, that's what's going to help us do well. Certainly in months like October, November into late December, where the stock market was doing nothing but going down. Then just after Christmas, the market takes off. And so then very quickly here in January, we'll be transitioning again out of those contras and into marijuana stocks. And at that point, we cut, if there's still a contra ETF in there, we would cut it loose and free up all the capital so that we could buy just simply the marijuana stocks and enjoy, the healthy stock market that's on the rise again. All right, so there's more detail here, so I'm going to work my way across. So we ran this test from just August the 24th of last year when the essay was written by Dr. DeLito, and we updated it through yesterday. And what we'll find is on our initial test here, we had 108%, a little over, and 54% winning positions to get there. So not a bad win-loss percentage either when you think of the volatility that both the marijuana stocks and the contra ETFs, particularly the leveraged ones that we'll be trading, carry. There's an awful lot of volatility there. So that creates great potential upside trades, but they carry some risk and some volatility as a result. That if we extrapolate that out to an annualized rate of return, we're on pace here for 184% a year with very minimal drawdown. And so, certainly 11.87% is quite livable, particularly if you look at a lot of the marijuana stocks, even the best of the best, they can have some pretty dramatic drawdowns from time to time before they get chugging again. And so let's talk a little bit more about what we've done, and then we'll show you the natural progression to get even better result as we get into eventually Profit Locker Pro. So what I'm going to do is click on Edit up here, and we'll take a look at the complete trading system. So we titled it Marijuana Magic 10% Trailing Stops. So we're going to be featuring 10% trailing stops in this initial one. Here again, you'll see we're going to use the DEW as our timing model. Now, a significant point to make here, this is going to require Auto Tester in order to be able to use a timing model in your testing. So those of you that are on VectorVest Real Time, you have that squared away. But if you are not a Auto Tester owner, you will not have the ability to use that function. Now, the other thing that we're going to see here is in Automation Rules Up, we're going to be buying long Marijuana Magic DR, that final search that we looked at in the Unisearch tab. We're just going to attach a 10% trailing stop to the stocks that we buy from the marijuana healthcare industry. Then, when the market reverses course enough to receive a DEW down call on the market, we will be switching off when our marijuana stocks hit the 10 trail. We'll be switching off to contra ETFs. Okay, and so I'll show you the finer details here. I'll click on Customize Trading System, and we'll go here to Automation Rules Up. So again, Marijuana Magic DR is our search. Stop criteria, 10% trailing stop, made no modifications. So as soon as you choose trailing stop, just take the defaults, you're good to go. Under more settings, we are going to use the default 10 position so that we spread our risk among enough stocks to give us a reasonably good chance at some explosive gains. We'll automatically replace closed positions. That's fine. And, we left a lot of the defaults here. This is just kind of your baseline. Does what we're trying to do here have any merit whatsoever type of test? So everything else here, I believe, is a default setting, except for this one here, which says close any position that was opened in a different situation. So that's going to be closing when we go from a down to an up on the DEW, from a down signal to an up signal. It's going to close any remaining contra ETFs out so that we get our powder dry and we can buy 10 marijuana stocks right away and participate in what is now a healthy market and a market that's going up. Okay. When we go to down, we will use worst performing contra ETFs is the one that we decided to choose, which is kind of a bottom fishing approach to the contras. It's the ones that haven't quite kicked into gear yet. So when we go from an up to a down signal, we're going to find the ones that have been the most resistance to, well, in the case of contras, turning up because they're inverse, right? But kind of the laggards, if you will, the worst performing ones, more of a bottom fishing kind of approach for the contras. When we go to the stop criteria, our trailing stop here will be just the default 10. And on the more settings tab, we did not automatically replace, as in bull market scenarios like we find ourselves in now, and we're in late stages of the bull market scenario, right? But still there, as classified by VectorVest. You will not typically want to push the envelope on the downside. You tend to have more prolonged and protracted upturns and short, swift downturns. So we're going to be participating in the early portions of those short, swift downturns, try to lock in some solid profits right out of the gate, and then begin to eliminate our risk by just not replacing those stocks with new contras when we sell something at a profit or a loss. So you kind of just dwindle the list down through time, so that you have less and less exposure on the downside. Okay? And that's really it. Also this one here, don't close any open position. So again, we're going to let those marijuana stocks run. They're getting into a position now where they're more and more tied to market direction, which is why I believe the DEW signal is valid. But at the same time, they are a breed of stock that they're very news driven right now, and if they want to keep on running, we're going to let them do that. But we're going to do it smart. We're going to do it with the 10 trail, and it's not until we sell one on the 10 trail that we're going to get a contra in. And so each time we sell a marijuana stock, when we're in a DEW down, we'll get another contra in, and another contra in, and another. So more of like a one by one in most situations. Okay. All right. So I'm going to finish this. And when I do, that was the final. This was again the result of all that baseline effort, and it's a pretty solid equity curve right out of the gate, And so we started out in pretty good water and said, well, gee whiz, yeah, there's something to this. Let's see if we can refine things, make it even better. And I'll spare you all the iterations. Believe me, there was 3 of us here working on it, and hundreds of tests were run, But I will say our natural inclination here was, 10% trailing stop did pretty well, but I bet you Profit Locker, is going to do better. And how much better, remains to be seen, but it's likely to at least do better right out of the box, And so what we did was we just made that substitution, and that's all we did. So on the second test here, what you'll see is it goes up a little bit in terms of percentage. We go down a touch in terms of percent winners, but I'm okay with that, as long as we're moving the needle. But the commissions went way down. And to me, while commission cost is not like an end-all, be-all, make or break on a trading system, it is in a way in that it's tied to activity. how active you're going to have to be. And so the nice thing about Profit Locker is it reduced your amount of activity quite a bit. In fact, by about a third, as it dropped more than $500 worth of commissions off, around about $530. So that's a significant number when you're talking about $1,500 overall, dropping it down to $1,000. So Profit Locker does what it's supposed to do, and that's give these trades some room to breathe and thereby eliminate how active you're going to have to be, which is super cool. It's a nice benefit. And when we look at the drawdown, it was able to actually reduce it as well on less activity, which is plus, So great stuff there. And I'll just quickly show you. If I go to edit up here and go into the trading system, yep, I mean, it's still DEW, same searches, just on the situations, we switched from trailing stop to Profit Locker. Use the default settings, 50-15, and boy, doesn't it work well. And so just a little recap on Profit Locker, guys. I know some of you may still be struggling out there. This black, nice little work by our dev team, and this black line that you see here is price. Okay, so if price rises, we want our stop to rise naturally, right? And so that's what Profit Locker does. Now you can see it's got some curves to it, right? So there's an initial trail, then there's a switch off to kind of a volatility portion of the curve where it gives it some wiggle room and some ability to breathe. Once the stock has gone up enough where it warrants it, and then the closer you get to your target, the tighter your stop becomes. And so that's this is patent pending. There's nothing else out there anywhere that's like it, and it's super good. I've never seen anything better, and I've seen a lot of stuff. So it's a good tool to have in your toolbox. And so this is part of your default VectorVest platform, whether you're end of day, real time, intraday, it's in there. And so that's valuable. It's valuable to have right now. When we go to more settings, still 10 stocks. There's no real changes here. The only thing we changed was the stop loss itself. And that was on both sides. We used 50-15 on both sides. And what you see here is, it moved the needle again, as we talked about. And so that's a winning situation there. So Profit Locker, I'm just going to, every time I get on here, it seems I say the same thing, but that's good, right? Because every time I get on, what I say is, if you're not using Profit Locker, you ought to give it a look. It keeps doing really well. So, before long, maybe you should use it, right? But that takes us to the next part, and then what we've done here with Profit Locker Pro is created a situation where you can get in there and really refine Profit Locker to the caliber of stock that you're going to trade, and listen, we're going to be doing a lot of work on that front for you, just like we did today. So you'll be able to reap the benefit of that if you're a Profit Locker Pro subscriber. So let's talk about it, because it's worth talking about. It really is. Same test bed, August to March. Now we're talking 170%. So we're really kicking it up here. And, win-loss percentage is very acceptable for a trader. Some of you long-term investors out there might be thinking, well, wait a minute. Yeah, but, you got to wait 5 years sometimes to get that winning percentage up, right? So, in terms of how active we've been, very, very acceptable numbers all across the board here, provided you're able to find some big winners, right? And certainly, the gain loss shows that we did. So when we get to total commissions, the nice thing here is it still kept them quite low, and we're kind of splitting the difference between the prior two tests. Very, very acceptable numbers here as well, and we're less active than if we just use some 10% trailing out of the box. And again, drawdown, very, very acceptable. I'm going to click edit here, and we're going to see what we did. And this is kind of cool because there'll be some education now around a little bit more on Profit Locker. So when I go customize trading system and same DW, same searches, only difference here again is Profit Locker Pro instead of Profit Locker. So you're saying, well, what's the difference, right? So with Profit Locker Pro, I will say this, there are some what we termed enhanced templates in here that are really very good. In fact, I've been using this aggressive enhanced for a lot of what I do on the aggressive side of my portfolio, and it's working like a champ. The other thing I would say here is it gives you the ability to do a custom. And so what we're going to be doing is, marijuana stocks kind of have their own DNA, right? Dr. Lito has said that and shared that with us in the views. Looking at a chart, you get a feel for the DNA. And with the marijuana stocks, even the strong ones, you've got some pretty big price swings that you're going to have to deal with from time to time, right? And so what we can do is customize it to the stocks. And so we're going to elevate the target, actually, because when some of these marijuana stocks catch fire, buddy, they catch fire, right? There are some that have gone up 600% or more in the last year, right? So we're going to use an elevated target. The other thing we're going to do, though, is we're going to tighten the stop. So it's going to be interesting because we're going to tighten it in this way, but we're going to loosen it in another. But we are going to bring that up to a very, very acceptable initial stop of 7%. What we're going to do next is tip the greed to be less greedy. So this is where people sometimes struggle, but the greed is normally kind of normalized, if you will, at 50%. That's the default 50-15 profit locker, for example. What we've done here is, and I want you to watch this. This is beautiful. I love what our dev team, again, did out here. When I move the percentage down, look how tight the stop loss begins to move towards price. And when I loosen it, if I want to be more greedy, it gives it more wiggle room, right? So what we did, actually, the default is 50. We moved it to 35. So I know we elevated the target a good bit, but we brought that stop and loss up, and we tightened the greed factor. And then what we did next was move the transition point down. And so there's that point where you have the initial trail and then break off into this flat portion where it just kind of holds the line there for you as a stop. That's your, where it switches from the initial trail to the flattening, that's your transition point, okay? And so what we did, that normally sits at 0. Which means with the 7% stop, the stock has to go up 7% and lock in break even by default. What we did was loosen that a bit because we found in a lot of the testing, dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, it's hard to count them, of tests that we did, we found a lot of stocks getting bounced out at nominal gains and nominal loss. So what we did was work with moving that transition point down just a touch, but as little as we needed to, right? So -2 is the number. So that really means once the stock goes up 5%, this is gonna go sideways and say, all right, I'm willing to, if it somehow sinks down to -2, I'm gonna get out, but I'm gonna give it that much room. I'm gonna give it that much space. So pretty neat. And geez, I know I think as well as I might have explained that, it's going to be challenging for some of you to get your head around, but it just goes to show the flexibility of the tool. All we did really with the transition is we allowed the wiggle room to kick in a little sooner, give it just a little bit more wiggle room a little sooner. And with these volatile ETFs and these volatile marijuana stocks, that was just what the doctor ordered, essentially. So these are the settings we ended up with. Okay, they're optimized for sure, but it all makes sense based upon the kind of stocks that you're dealing with here. Now, when I go to automation rules down, here we have a different set because contras move differently than even the marijuana stocks. In terms of magnitude and so on and so forth, dramatic swings and so on. So we use a 65 target and we left the 15 stop. They needed a little bit more wiggle room, particularly earlier in the trade than even the marijuana stocks did. With the greed, we were a little less greedy here too, because again, they needed just a little bit more room to give them some room to operate. Okay, so that's at 40. Our end trail we loosened at 3, just to squeak out some further gains when we get up to 65. And the transition was -2. So here again, that was a constant, and I think that speaks to when you're going to be trading volatile issues, whether it's marijuana stocks, contras, or something else, when it's volatile, that transition point looks like something that, can be adjusted and worked with quite a bit to give you better outcomes. And so we're making a lot of great discoveries, guys, as we continue to garner more and more experience with this tool ourselves. And I got to tell you, the more I work with it, the more I'm fond of it. And it's unbeatable. I don't think there's anything else out there like this, guys. Really isn't. And not nearly as good, that's for sure. But anyway, here on more setting, again, you're going to see we didn't really change anything here. The only thing we did was just keep working on that stop loss. And when I get back, that 170 is going to be hard to beat. Super glad that we did some work here. It plays nicely with a lot of the essays that our founder, Dr. DeLito, has been writing here as of late. And, here we are. We're in a down right now. So just to solidify some of the learning for some of you, this isn't today. This was yesterday. It was telling us to sell Kronos, okay, and to buy a Contra. Now, of course, market went up a little bit today, but when we look at, it tells you what to do. That's the main thing. And, as this market, if it somehow continues to rise here, eventually we're going to get to a DEW up again, and we'll be looking at buying marijuana stocks with this strategy, with this technique. So lots of fun stuff, and it never ceases to amaze how great VectorVest power and tools are in terms of being able to get the job done for you guys. So wanted to share all that with you. Final thing here. Everybody now can go to www.vectorvest.com/tryplp to get a free, and I mean free, trial to Profit Locker Pro. So, we're going to be making a lot of great discoveries. We're going to be using it an awful lot, guys. And if you want to stay in tune with us with some of those things and really ramp those gains up potentially for each and every one of you, this is something I think you don't want to miss out on. At least get a little bit of exposure to it. See if it's something that's going to work well for you. I'm confident that if you give it a legitimate shot, it will be. And I'll just leave it at that. So www.vectorvest.com/tryplp. For those of you that may struggle, putting this kind of stuff into your browser and going to a website, right in the VectorVest views tonight, in the strategy section, there'll be a link that you can click. It'll say click here, to start a 30-day trial to Profit Locker Pro, click here. So right in the strategy section tonight, you can simply click that link as well. And I just want to thank you for tuning in. We had some great discoveries to share with you. That's one of our main priorities here. And I just want to wish everyone from this point a great weekend. And we'll be right back here next week with your next special presentation. See you then.
Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Now, if you're new to the software or would like refresher information about the software, click on this Getting Started video right here. Thanks to all of your input, here's a YouTube video that we think would be perfect for you. Click right here. If nothing else, folks, just hit the subscribe button right here.